Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently declared that Israel would chart its own course, independent of U.S. influence. This statement marked a potential turning point in the historically close relationship between the two nations. It laid bare the growing tensions between Netanyahu and President Biden, contrasting with the warmth of previous administrations. The rift deepened following the recent escalation of violence in Gaza, with Washington expressing reservations over Israel's military response. This growing chasm has left many observers wondering about the future of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Netanyahu's declaration of independence, while shocking, was not entirely out of character. Throughout his career he has clashed with Israel's closest allies, prioritizing Israel's security interests. By publicly asserting Israel's autonomy from U.S. influence, Netanyahu seemed to be drawing a line in the sand. This bold stance is driven in part by Netanyahu's domestic political calculations, facing mounting legal troubles and a restive electorate. By presenting himself as the only leader willing to stand up for Israel's interests, he may be hoping to rally Israelis behind him. Whether this gamble will pay off remains to be seen, but it marks a significant escalation in the already tense relationship between Israel and the United States. The current tensions between the U.S. and Israel, while serious, are not without precedent. The relationship has always been a complex interplay of shared interests and diverging worldviews. Despite periodic crises, the relationship has endured, underpinned by a fundamental alignment of strategic interests. The Biden administration's more critical stance towards Israel's policies has exacerbated these tensions. Biden's decision to restore U.S. funding for the Palestinians and his condemnation of Israel's settlement activities have been met with anger in Jerusalem. The question now is whether these differences can be reconciled or represent a more fundamental divergence of values and interests. President Biden came into office pledging to restore America's global leadership and rebuild relationships. However, Biden's efforts have been complicated by the increasingly assertive stance of leaders like Netanyahu. Biden finds himself caught between upholding America's values and maintaining close ties with Israel. Netanyahu's recent declaration suggests he is no longer willing to play by Washington's rules. The Biden administration now faces a difficult choice: soften its stance or hold firm to its principles, risking further damage to the U.S.-Israel relationship. The potential ramifications of a fractured U.S.-Israel relationship extend far beyond the Middle East. A weakening of this historic alliance could have profound implications for international security and the global economy. On the security front, a less cohesive partnership could embolden adversaries like Iran. Economically, a rift could disrupt trade flows and investment in a region already grappling with numerous challenges. The global economy, already reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, would be ill-equipped to weather such turbulence. A fracturing of the U.S.-Israel relationship could erode faith in the rules-based international order. No issue has been more divisive in the U.S.-Israel relationship than Iran and its nuclear ambitions. The 2015 nuclear deal, opposed by Netanyahu, laid bare deep divisions between the two allies. The Biden administration has pledged to re-enter the nuclear deal, arguing it is the best way to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Netanyahu remains fiercely opposed, arguing that only sustained pressure will deter Iran. This fundamental disagreement threatens to derail any efforts at reconciliation. The Biden administration faces an unenviable choice: press ahead with the nuclear deal or risk a major rupture with Israel. The Middle East is in a state of constant flux, creating new challenges and opportunities. The Abraham Accords, signed in 2020, normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states. However, they were also seen as a sign of shifting alliances, with some Arab states prioritizing their own interests over the Palestinian cause. The Biden administration has welcomed the accords, but is wary of any arrangements that might undermine efforts to achieve a two-state solution. Netanyahu has embraced the accords as a vindication of his hardline approach. This divergence of views on the Abraham Accords is another source of tension between the U.S. and Israel. Both Biden and Netanyahu are operating within their own domestic political context. In the U.S., Biden faces a deeply polarized electorate and a Congress increasingly skeptical of foreign entanglements. While support for Israel remains strong, there is growing unease about Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. Netanyahu, meanwhile, is facing his own set of domestic challenges, including a corruption trial and a precarious political situation. These domestic realities have created a climate of mistrust between the two leaders. Biden is wary of being seen as too accommodating to Netanyahu, while Netanyahu is reluctant to make any concessions. The Arab public has long viewed the U.S.-Israel relationship with suspicion and resentment. The perception that the U.S. has consistently sided with Israel has fueled anti-American sentiment. Many in the Arab world view Netanyahu's declaration of independence with skepticism, seeing it as a tactical maneuver. There are concerns that a weakening of the U.S.-Israel relationship could embolden Israel to take more unilateral action. The Biden administration is aware of these concerns and has sought to reassure Arab allies. However, the administration will need to back up its words with actions to rebuild trust. The future of the U.S.-Israel relationship hangs in the balance. The Biden administration faces a delicate balancing act, upholding its commitment to Israel's security while promoting its values. Netanyahu must decide how far he is willing to push his independence from the U.S. The choices made by these two leaders will have profound consequences for the Middle East and beyond. A further deterioration in the relationship would have far-reaching implications for regional stability and the global balance of power. The stakes are high, and the consequences of failure are significant. Despite the current tensions, the U.S.-Israel relationship is built on a deep foundation of shared values and strategic interests. These enduring bonds have weathered numerous storms in the past. The U.S. and Israel share a commitment to democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. However, the relationship is undergoing a period of profound transformation. The future of the U.S.-Israel relationship will depend on the choices made by leaders in both Washington and Jerusalem. The stakes are high, but the enduring bonds between the two countries offer hope that a path forward can be found.